You love to see when creative dreams come true, and that's exactly the case with Dune Part 2 in the hands of Denis Villeneuve. He is to the Dune franchise, to Frank Herbert's incredible Dune property, the novels that he created, the mythology that he created. He's to Dune what Peter Jackson is to Lord of the Rings, in my opinion. He understands the subject material completely and fully. He wants to honor it on screen, and he's created a beautiful, beautiful galaxy for us to dive into and to examine and to think about and to contemplate and to marvel over, because these movies are absolutely staggering. And I want to say that Dune Part 2 doesn't have that same shock that the original Dune film did, because that came out of Denis Villeneuve and his creative team's imagination, and it was the first time to see these giant machines on screen that are pulling the spice out of Arrakis, and to see all of this beautiful ornate architecture and the paintings on the wall and the uniforms of the Atreides, and just to get a feel for the Dune universe. It was our first time, and we don't quite have that here again with Dune Part 2, which really just carries on the story almost immediately following the events of Dune Part 1. Paul Atreides is lifting himself up from the ruins of his fallen empire. He's seen lots of friends and family suffer, and he's also been kind of taken in with some suspicions by the Fremen, the indigenous peoples of Arrakis, who are training him and teaching him in their ways, and he is aware that he could be quite a bit more to these people because of the prophecies that have filtered around in the air around Arrakis. And Paul Atreides is a scholar, and he's done a lot of research about how he could integrate with these Fremen, and he really respects them and wants to earn their respect. And so what we see in Dune Part 2 is Paul Atreides becoming more aware of his power and his influence over people, and he goes through a series of tests which we see on screen, which are stunning to behold, because everything on Arrakis is epic scaled and incredibly dangerous, principally because the sandworms factor into almost every challenge that people have to face. Whether people are mining for spice or fending off enemies, the sandworms tend to appear and create all kinds of havoc, and they're truly terrifying, and they're really well represented on screen. I also have to say, though, that Arrakis is kind of one color, it's kind of it's sand, so you're getting a lot of kind of brown to orange on screen, and there are beautiful representations of sandstorms, and you have these incredibly epic shots of Harkonnen just floating down onto the sand surface in this orange mist, and they're just these black, menacing figures that are out hunting all of these Fremen. And over the course of the film, we see all kinds of incredibly conceptualized battles. Denis Villeneuve is a master at blending what he photographs with digital elements and making them seem seamless. There are truly just some awe-inspiring shots in here where you'll see ornithopters cascading over a mountain range, and they're blasting into mountains, and you'll see the Fremen running from Harkonnen with these evil glints in their eyes. The Harkonnen are incredible villains in here. But the story of Dune Part 2 also takes us into some really interesting directions. We see all of the Machiavellian puppeteering that is happening across the galaxy, and it's intriguing, and it's thought-provoking, and it's hard not to think about the political statements that Herbert was making back when these original books were written, and also a lot of the political landscape that we have in our world today, and see the parallels with all this. Powerful people making duplicitous decisions that are affecting millions and millions of people. And we get a good sense of that scale in this movie, which is not easy to do. And some of the shots in this film where we have Paul Atreides, who is now being called Muad'Dib, walking up onto the top of mountains and lifting his dagger up in the air, and he's got the cheers and the support of what looks like hundreds of thousands of Fremen below him, is really, really incredible. There is such beautiful work here to create the sense of scale, whether it's these massive ships that land on Arrakis that are carrying super important people, or it's these large-scale battles where we're seeing all kinds of craft and all kinds of warriors with bladed weapons and laser blasts flying all over the place. It's incredible. The only thing I would have liked a little bit more of in Dune Part 2 is maybe another underline of why spice is so vitally important to the people of this mythology and this universe, because we don't really get shots of space travel and what that's going to mean. There are some teases that might be in store in a sequel to this film, but for the most part, we are on Arrakis, And because there's a uniformity to the environment, which is inescapable in a desert world like this, the shots in the film, although they're beautiful and punctuated by all these really epic battle sequences, there's a lot of shots that kind of mirror things that we saw in the first film. It's still beautifully photographed. It's still gorgeous. I thought that the work from all of the actors, everybody understood the richness of this universe, the value of these stories. And I also think that Denis Villeneuve leading the charge with this passion project that he's been wanting to make forever, I think really inspired everyone to deliver their best work. I was very impressed by Timothée Chalamet. He's a terrific actor anyway, but he really is a believable leader for these people. And that's not an easy thing to do, especially for someone so charming and slight. You know, he's not like this massive, he's not Thanos. No one's going to mistake him for Josh Brolin. You know what I mean? He is a leader that looks like he's struggling with what that means and how he's going to take charge. But through the course of events in the film, you really see him own that position and just kick ass in the role. He's terrific in it. Same could be said for Austin Butler, who's been added to the cast as Fade Routha, and he is terrifying. He's relishing every second that he has on screen, and he's truly a menacing villain. He's very physical in his performance. He looks like he's having a great time, but he looks like he worked his ass off, and I really enjoyed his work in there. Dave Bautista is screaming through almost every line that he's got in this film, but again, super committed and terrifying to watch on screen. I love Stellan Skarsgård's work, and it was great to see Christopher Walken in this. I also thought Florence Pugh was a great addition to the cast as well. She is very different from a lot of the other characters that we've seen her in recently, and she's a really tremendous actor. She's terrific in this role. And also Zendaya is terrific as Chani, who is along for the ride alongside Timothée Chalamet's Paul Atreides, and sees the rise in power that the person that she cares for is struggling with. And she is challenged by it, and she challenges him, and she is also a ferocious fighter and driven by the cause and trying to, win freedom for the Fremen, and also terrific casting in the role. Great to see her have a lot more to do. But I think my favorite performer in both of these Dune movies is Rebecca Ferguson, who is incredible as Lady Jessica. She's got a lot of work to do as she integrates into the Fremen culture, and she's also coaching her son and trying to orchestrate where she and her child are going to end up. And you can see her using the Bene Gesserit manipulation, and there's a calculation to her performance, but it's spooky and moody and always thrilling to watch. I mean, this is a masterpiece film, just like the first Dune film was. You can't really watch this one in isolation. I would feel sorry for anyone that jumps into the Dune universe and this is what you start with. You have to watch the first film. These movies, and presumably we're going to get a third one to complete this trilogy, are going to end up with as much adoration and love and respect as anything that we saw Peter Jackson do or George Lucas do with the original Star Wars trilogy. This is unbelievable movie making, beautiful science fiction work, and not to be missed, especially on the big screen. I'm going to give Dune Part 2 a 9.5 out of 10.